Hello everyone and welcome to Overexposed, the BWRM podcast where we delve into the ins and outs of running a real estate photography and videography business. My name's Dave Temple.
And my name is Jackie Kirk. Today's episode is part one of a 5-part series on the pillars that form BWRM. We're often asked what exactly it is that BWRM does to help creatives. It's a big question with a long answer, so we've broken it down into our 5 pillars: product, portal, people, process, and pathway. Today, we're talking about Pillar 1, product. Joining us is our founder and CEO, Guy LePage. For those of you who don't know him, Guy's been running a real estate photography business for about 15 years and started BWRM back in 2016. How this all happened is a fascinating story, so if you're interested in hearing more, have a listen to episode 4. Welcome, Guy. It's great to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Great to be back.
Good. So, shall we just get straight into this? Pillar 1, product. Guy, can you explain what BWRM offers under Pillar 1?
Yes. So I suppose what we offer broadly is the platform as you described, and that's propped up by those 5 pillars. Those pillars make up the engine room of a real estate photography business. So that's sort of how I like to describe it. So today we're talking about the product pillar, and that is basically the end thing that we deliver to our client. So the piece of marketing that we deliver to our client. So whether that be professionally edited images or a really amazing video or a Instagram reel or a branded floor plan.
How did you go about setting this up? You started BWRM and we discussed it a little bit in episode 4, but you realized that you needed to be outsourcing your work pretty quickly in your business, didn't you?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do in another pillar is we work out what a high payoff activity is for a photographer. And really what's at core is building relationships and going out and doing shoots, right? And to do that and do that effectively without killing yourself, you really need to be able to outsource the production of that work in a really consistent and high quality way, so you can continue to build relationships and continue to go out and do the work. So the product pillar is about freeing up time, but maintaining a really, really high quality, and in a lot of cases, much higher quality than you could actually do yourself. And things like video, for example, take a very long time to produce to a really high level. So being able to push that out at the end of the day to an editing team through the other pillar, one of our other pillars, the portal, allows you to wake up in the morning and have an edited video that's ready to be delivered to your client, which is just almost impossible on your own.
So, Guy, photos, floor plans, videos, reels, site plans, all of this stuff, where's all of this getting produced?
It depends on the product, but I'll start with video because that's probably the most exciting. That gets done in Mauritius at a studio that we started in 2017, I think it was, when we realised video was going to be a really big part of the market, and there just were no ready-made solutions. So, Jackie, you grew up in Mauritius. We had connections there, so over we went and started our studio. And so then we have floor plans. We started a business in Vietnam that produces our floor plans. And then we also started image production in Vietnam, but we ended up running into quite a lot of challenges with that early on. And we ended up using a company that already existed and co-opting their high-end team and their quality team and their finesse team to just do our work. So a really well-established business there. And that's in Vietnam as well.
So all of this seems like a huge amount of work to set up. So you had your business running on the Bellarine Peninsula doing a huge amount of work, and then did you go overseas and do all of this in person?
Look, back in the good old days, I actually had it all in-house. So I had done it all, with people I knew locally. So I had retouchers, and I think I talked about that briefly in the previous podcast, but I had a retouching team locally. Nick and I, one of the other directors of BWRM, I think he was in a podcast recently as well. He and I actually set up a local floor plan outsourcing team. And I used to have an in-house editor. So I'd had experience in systemizing and training and obviously, well, not obviously, but in the previous podcast, I talked about my sort of the way I do process and my background in process. So I'd sort of been able to break those things down and really create step-by-step processes before. So I'd had experience doing that and I understood what needed to be done, but I'd never ventured off our shores to do that because that obviously brings in a whole other set of challenges, starting a business in another country.
What do you think the main lessons you learned from setting it up yourself? Because obviously you set it up yourself and then we moved to outsourcing in a different country. So there must have been a lesson learned to make you make that decision.
Yeah. So what I was finding is that I was struggling with turnaround time. So because, realistically, if you're finishing a day of shooting and you're getting your photos edited locally, it's either being done on a night shift or it's being done the next day. So I couldn't meet deadlines was really the issue. And if there were issues or I needed extra things done, I couldn't get them done because I was relying on really, I didn't have a team with enough breadth. I had a couple of people. So, I could see that burnout was something that was going to happen. So I really needed to have a team and just crunching the numbers, with what the market is, the real estate market is in Australia and what the marketing costs are. I knew that I just couldn't make that work in Australia. Similarly with my video editor, I had one editor in-house. He might have started the edit when I got home or got back to the office at that time and, worked into the day to deliver that the next day. But at the end of the first year, the wage bill was higher than what I billed in video. So again, same, economics just didn't add up. So offshore was a really good option in terms of building breadth and width in a team because, you can have lower wages, but that's not the main driver. The main driver is really getting that turnaround and that moving away from the reliance on a couple of key people. Presumably
as well, one of the benefits of offshore outsourcing is that suddenly you're not in charge of, training the team anyway, because you were presumably doing that.
Yeah. There's a huge amount. So, obviously, you've got to be really careful because there's sweatshops out there effectively in our industry, right? So you don't want to just go chasing a cheap product, right? What you've got to do is try to create a product that's every bit as good as we have here, if not better, and then put really high quality processes in. And it sort of flows into what we do with creative businesses. You need to make it sustainable. So you need the video editor or the floor plan drawer or the image retoucher to be getting a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. And then you need to put the resources around there so they really understand what it is they're supposed to do, so the role clarity stuff. And then you need to put sort of a management oversight training around them. So you wrap everything around them in very much the same way as we have our pillars here. In each of those businesses, there's those same sort of pillars. And that really then allows you to grow and expand. So, I don't go in and train every video editor, every floor planner or every image retoucher anymore. It's get the basics right, get the great people in place, and then have a really good culture in those businesses where people are really invested in the success. They're part of our team. They feel like they're part of our team. And then what you'll find is you'll have a product that just keeps getting better and better on its own because it's we've created that ecosystem within that business where ecosystem or flywheel or whatever it is, but it's just this continual circular, do a great job, get some great feedback, try to do a little bit better job, and then throw in a bit of extra tech in there, and all of these things to sort of feed in a way, and you just keep developing, keep growing, and keep building better products.
So talk to me a little bit about the video editing house, because that's, one of our really exciting ones. I think there are a few image editing houses and retouching houses around the country, but I haven't found it, or around the world rather, but I haven't seen anything quite like the video editing. What was that like to set up, and what sets it apart?
So to set it up, I mean, it was a little bit it's exciting. I like creating a new business. Isn't that fun, right? And it was in another country, and that country happened to be Mauritius. So brilliant, tick, tick, tick. But realistically, it took using the network that you had, Jackie, finding the right people took probably the most amount of time. And we really found the right people. Having a model that made sense to everybody involved at the time. So, we had or have, Max, who runs the video editing house, he's a shareholder of BWRM, it makes sense. And then basically really what we did is we just went through and we overcame challenges over time. But what we set out to do, and I think that's really important to mention and what we continue to do, is not just do what maybe other people do or what you've always done. What we really wanted to do was create something that was the best possible outcome for us, right? So sending video files in those times was hugely challenging. So we had to create a process whereby our members would generate a smaller proxy file. They would get that offshore. That would come back, and then they'd have to link it all back together. And just as I hit Mauritius, Adobe released new software that made that whole process a lot easier. So everything that we'd done for 6 months prior to me hitting the ground in Mauritius, we basically had to redo in 2 weeks, which we did. And now, as it turns out, we are the biggest user of that service for Adobe globally, which is their Adobe team projects. And Andrew, who, Jackie, I think you know quite well, has done quite a lot of custom software for us within that software, so much to the point where, he's got a really great relationships with the engineers at Adobe. So, we have degrees of automation that just take out non-creative steps. So all of the nonsense that you have to do just to get a video ready can be done at the push of a button. We're continuing to develop that to try to bring in AI just to get things faster. So then we create more space for the editor to be more creative and deliver a better product in the same amount of time. And we've continually done that.
And how many editors do you have working there?
We've got 5, I think.
5 people doing, Dave, how many videos a month?
On average, 250.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And that'll spike out, 100 videos beyond that in peak times.
And so that's really interesting. So it's that automation that seems to be the automation, the culture there as well, but that seems to be the special sauce. Do you think you lose a creative element when you bring in automation, or is it the opposite?
Well, no. I think you can. I mean, I think you can do automation badly or you can do it well. It just depends what your goal is. And for us, the goal was best videos you can get, right? That's number one, in terms of the product. So every bit of automation was just designed to take time away from the setup to free up time for the creative. And then if you do that, you can maintain a price point, right? And so no one's getting stooged. We're not screwing down the video editors to do something cheaper. We're just maintaining a time standard, but in that time standard, I think last thing that Andrew achieved, or actually the thing that he's working on now, is looking like taking literally 20 minutes out of the video process that has nothing to do with creativity. So once we implement that, we'll have created another 20 minutes in that place where the editor can make decisions that are creative, which gives us an edge. It gives us a better product. And no price change. We don't need to lower the price. We just get a better product for the same price. The editor feels better. They've got more time to be creative.
And just while we're talking about timescales, just for people who are maybe listening and haven't used the service, what will be the timescale, the turnaround time for a video in general?
Well, when we set it up as a 24-hour turnaround. So I upload tonight at 4 or 5 o'clock, in the afternoon. That might take an hour to upload, or, 2 back in the good old days. That edit I would expect that 24 hours later. But what's really happened is that we're basically getting them overnight almost every time. Now, there are occasions where there's a lot of footage and it comes late and, a lot of After Effects required, and you're not going to get it the next morning, and that's okay. But, we're talking upwards of 90% of the videos are ready. If you get it off this afternoon, you'll have it by 8 o'clock in the morning.
And has the process changed? Are you still doing linking and converting?
No, so you can. So what we've maintained that as an option, but I know we'll get to the portal at another time, that pillar of the platform. But since we started this project, we created our own portal, and that really was a game changer with getting video files across to the editors. So what they do is they still create a team project. You still have the ability to sync your stuff up at your end directly into Premiere and make any changes you want. It could be as simple as just adding an extra agent to the end of the video in the morning and then exporting it. You've still got that functionality, but in my business at least, I just don't use it anymore. I don't need to, but it's there as a backup if I want to.
Presumably that's a good option for people with either cameras that shoot huge formats or people in really poor internet areas as well.
Yeah, and again, we were all in poor internet areas in Australia once upon a time, and now some of us are lucky. Well, I'm not. Some people are lucky to have decent internet now. But yeah, it's a live option to be able to create proxy files.
So what's your process then? If you've got great internet, just take me through. You've shot a video, or one of your contractors or staff members have shot a video. They upload it. What are they doing to upload it?
Yeah. So we, first of all, and we'll get to this in another podcast. One of the pillars is process, right? So that's about how we capture on site. So we get that bit right. So we're not overshooting, right? And so when we get home, we plug our memory card into our computer. We select up to around 60 video clips. We drag and drop them into our portal in the other pillar that we'll talk about another time. We hit upload, brief pops up. We pop in the details that we need that are pertinent. If there's going to be some call-out titles, we've got our little screen grabs and some markups. Often they're already done for the drone images anyway. Drag and drop those in, upload completes, move on with your life. And then in the morning, I'll open up the portal, I'll review the video, and I might have some amazing add-ons like that we've been able to create huge levels of automation to make much, much more efficient for the editors. Like my reels, for example. So I might have the full edit and then a 30-second reel that's only costing me a very small amount more to have done. I'll view those, assuming they're correct, hit deliver. Now, what I've done with my clients is I've maintained that, yes, you'll probably get it in 12, but 24 hours is the time standard. So what that allows me to do is if there are changes that need to be made or things that I'm not happy with, which doesn't happen very often, let me tell you, but if there are, I'll send that feedback back through our portal. That'll get to the editors when they start work at roughly 2 p.m. our time, and I'll have that back that evening. So, and then I'll deliver it in the evening, like as in 5 o'clock, something like that. So I don't touch Premiere anymore.
So you've got like pretty strict, I know we're going to talk about processes in the other podcast, sorry, Dave. Is there opportunity for flexibility if you've got standard real estate videos and that sort of things? What if someone does something a little bit different, a little bit special, something that's, going to be a lot of clips? Are there options for that?
Absolutely. And actually what we have to do with the video editing house is we actually take on any other work that isn't real estate outside of BWRM. And that's really cool because that keeps the editors sharp. And it broadens their skill base. So, for example, we've edited stuff for the BBC and a Heston Blumenthal series. We just recently did Pirelli ads, Pirelli tyre ads. You name it, we can do it. RM Williams have done some stuff. They wouldn't know that we're doing the bulk of the editing, but that's the reality. So putting stories together is what you do. So there's nothing that you can't send to our editing house. There's nothing, and we can deliver all of it. So you can and I am, really consistent with the products that we offer. We offer a 30-second video, we offer a 45-second video, 60, 90, whatever. And for that, I've got it right with the amount of clips that we're doing. I've got that really clear, just the meat and potatoes again to allow the creative to be creative within that framework. So, you can shoot 60 rubbish clips and still get a great video, or you can shoot 60 really great clips and get an amazing video. So yeah, if you want to be there all day from dawn till dusk and come back and shoot 3 dawns in a row and do, fly through the house with a drone or do something bad, that's okay. You can. There'll just be, there's a cost implication for that and a process implication that presumably the end user is well aware of.
When you speak to other photographers on the internet and in passing, a lot of them don't want to do floor plans because they don't see it as part of the business. Firstly, can you sort of explain why we do floor plans, which is it feels like a non-creative product? And secondly, how does that process work when getting them drawn up?
Yeah, so it isn't really part of the creative suite of offerings, but it is a product that our clients need and use. And so any person who's running a business will sell products that their clients want. So, just because you run a cafe and you don't like orange juice doesn't mean you don't sell it, right? So that's the mentality around floor plans sort of dealt with. So you're going to need to be able to do them because your clients want them. And if you don't offer them, somebody else might, and that other somebody else might also be a lovely person who's a great photographer, and then all of a sudden you've let them into your clients, in front of your clients, and you don't want to do that. So doing floor plans is really critical from a business perspective, maybe not as a photographer, or a purist perspective, but if you want to actually run a business, you run a business, right? So do the products that your client needs. And then really what we've done there is we've created a really simple process, and again, talking about process another time, to get that input right, whether it's sketching on site, or, I know, Dave, you did like some mad 8 hexagon house the other day, so sketching that, being able to deliver a sketch to the floor plan artist, or whether it's just taking a photo of a builder's plan, you can offload that via the portal to the drawing team, and they will send you back an image based on your client's needs, outputted. Now, I know, Jackie, you actually did some really beautiful work early on where you hand-painted watercolour, and so we offer that as one of our non-branded styles. It's sort of our own thing. So Jackie painted from scratch all the elements and textures for a floor plan, and then we digitised them, and then we've moved them into the floor plan, so you can order a watercolour style floor plan. We've also got some other styles, and we also match any style that an agency wants or their brand style. That then comes back through the portal, just like the videos, the next morning, and we also get an editable Illustrator file. So if you want to make changes, you can, or you can just, through the beauty of our process, just request those changes straight back through the portal, and they'll be done in, half an hour.
And Dave, how many floor plans are we doing a month on there? Do you have those numbers?
Yeah, so we're averaging 750 per month across the group.
Wow.
Does that include site plans, or are they all just bundled together, I would presume?
That's all together, yeah.
Awesome.
And yeah, so look, it's the unsexy work of a real estate photographer is getting floor plans done, but it's a really necessary cross-sell.
I really enjoy doing floor plans. I know you're bagging them out, but I find them quite relaxing and soothing. You get to give that creative side of your brain a bit of a rest. And for me, it's kind of like sitting down and playing with Lego. It all makes sense when it comes together at the end. It's all logical.
It's funny you should mention that, because it's the classic left brain, right brain difference, Now, I can't remember which is which, of course, but the creative's going to use one part and the floor plan's going to use another part of your brain.
Yeah.
And I'm making them sound worse than they are, because I like them too, because they're either right or they're wrong.
Yeah.
And when you're creative, there's rules, but not everybody knows those rules. So you might do everything right and it might look great and it might be right, but somebody else goes, yeah, I don't like it. Whereas with a floor plan, it's like, well, it is the lounge room, so too bad. I'm sorry, and it is 5 meters by 6 meters. So sorry, and the window is there. So it can provide that nice little, like you said, like that nice little, relief in your business where you're just like, well, this is not subjective. This is just it, right? And activating that other side of your brain's fun too.
And you can have fun with your labels as well. I remember being very pleased with myself. I did a house, and we're on the East Coast, and it had a northern deck and an eastern deck, and I labeled them northern deck and eastern deck, and the agents loved that. And it was just like, I don't know, you can have fun. You get into the occasional floor plan that's got been done by an architect who's on drugs, but like it's, for the most part, they're good fun, and you can figure them out. They're like a puzzle. So, yeah, don't be put off floor plans.
It can be an intimidating step for people who just want, in quotes, just want to be a photographer or just want to be a creative, though. And I know we'll get into that in the other podcast, but that's where the process comes in.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think this is the difference too. That is the difference between wanting to be a photographer and wanting to run a business. Because if you want to be a photographer, right, run a photography business, right? But shoot weddings. Well, there's going to be admin, and there's going to be invoicing, and there's going to be relationship man. There's going to be all sorts. Like, you're not just taking photos; you're running a business. So the reality is, it can be daunting, but too bad. You want to run a business, you probably got to just get over it and get it done. And you'll find it. You can do them almost, well, not literally, but almost with your eyes closed at the end of the day. And I remember you had a floor plan that was a little bit challenging, and you'd done everything right, and the agent had called you and said, we're really disappointed, the vendors, hating the floor plan, and it's all wrong. Anyway, they'd marked it up, and I remember one of the changes was they were just label changes, so nothing was actually wrong, but they changed the garage to be the car lounge.
Yes. Yep. Apparently that's a thing in high circles. I'm not familiar with it myself. The car lounge, yeah.
If I went to the car lounge and there wasn't carpet, I'd be very disappointed.
There probably was cashmere carpet, so it was that kind of house. There was the royal suite as well. There was some wild
breakout rooms.
Yes, breakout rooms.
Wonderful time.
Yeah. It was a very entertaining one. I enjoyed it. Let's talk a little bit about images. This is probably the thing that a lot of people really want to know about. So image process, pretty much the same as everything else. For anyone who's listening, you're probably getting kind of the idea. You upload your raw files, whether they floor plans or videos or images, off to the editors, and you get them back the next morning. And that's pretty much the process. Are people restricted to the look of their images, Guy?
No, not to a specific look. But they are to a specific quality standard. So we offer multiple styles, whether it be architectural style or a Scandi style that we developed, or just we've got our standard daytime, we've got a standard twilight, we've got a natural style. There's some brand styles we've had to match, right? So yeah, we have multiple styles, and then we've been through, like we've got to a level of detail with our image production where, we've specified hues of greens in grass. We've specified the colours of the sky and the luminance of the sky, so they're correct. We've specified the amount of cloud that can be inputted in the sky and when that can and can't be done. So we have been through every single detail when it comes to image production for every single product to get the best possible product out. And further to that, to do it at scale consistently year round. And that is where the challenge is. So, you can get cheap retouching. You can get cheaper retouching than we offer. There is no doubt about that. Can you get it at the quality as consistently all year round? Well, I'm almost certain you can't. I don't think anybody else can do what we do with images like that. So my clients buy a product from me. That product is put alongside their brand. Their brand has to is the most important thing to them, and how they present that brand is really important. If our images look crap or look different to what they're expecting, that's a problem for them and their brand, because our images actually form part of their forward-facing brand. So being really consistent, being really high quality, and being able to deliver in the height of spring at time, to meet press deadlines and at time standards that are, frankly, impossible in any other industry, is what we've managed to achieve with our image production. And you as a photographer might say, but I like retouching, and that's okay. You can do that. But what you're doing is you've effectively created yourself a job, not a business. And again, that's a perfectly legitimate decision you can make for yourself, in which case your BWRM is probably not right for you. People, the creatives that we have, want to run a business, and that means taking things that can be done better by other people and getting them done by them. Free yourself up to go and do more shoots, have more time on the shoots to be creative, build more relationships, and therefore build your business. So you can talk to 1,000 different real estate photographers on the real estate photography forums, and 500 will do their own retouching and will tell you why that's the best way to do it. And 500 will say, something different. But, all the people who are in BWRM understand that doing the editing is a low payoff activity in our language and needs to be done elsewhere. And so long as we hit those quality, consistency, and the photographer does their job with the creative, we've got no problems. We've got absolutely no problems. And we see our stuff in architectural magazines and all over the place. We're not just doing cheap, awful looking real estate photography stuff. It's really high end look and feel stuff.
And just for context as well, the amount of, just some numbers, the amount of images that go through our system per month on average is 17,000. As I said, floor plans is 750 a month, videos is 250 a month. And our busiest, you're probably one of our busiest business, if not the busiest business guy. How many jobs would you be going through each month?
At peak time, so we run regionally, and so we end up with a fairly seasonal business just because of the geography of it. So we'll have a fairly large peak in sort of October, November, where we might do 250 jobs. Now, of those 250, you've probably got some of those will be rental jobs that have 6 images, and some of those will be jobs that have 25 images, a video, drone photography, a bit of twilight added in there, and pretty much every single job has a floor and site plan. So at its peak, we could be putting, in fact, 2 days ago, we put 25 different jobs through in a single day in the middle of winter because the weather was good. And, we'd had a long weekend and we needed, all things conspired just to make 25 jobs need to happen in a day with videos, floor plans, images, all done, all delivered by mid-morning. No problems. No problems at all.
Have you ever had pushback from your clients about outsourcing your images? I remember when I started, there used to be photographers, and I used to do all my own stuff as well. I think we all did. We've all kind of been there at 2 a.m. editing a video and, editing a photo. But I remember previously when I first started outsourcing, there would be photographers that kind of had it as a pride point where they'd say, oh, well, I do all my own editing. Have you found that clients look differently at you for outsourcing?
I think a lot of them don't even know that we outsource. So that's probably a portion of them. And then the ones that do know are probably where I've had more pushback is where I've brought people into my team to actually shoot the product, right? So that's probably where I've had the biggest pushback because I've built the relationship. They're used to me. They know the way that I do things, and now there's somebody else there, right? But what you can do when you outsource your product is you can train somebody, if they've got the right attitude, you can train somebody to have, and they can build their own relationship with that client, right? So they do it their way, but they do it correctly and they're respectful and they do all the great things on site to get the data. But then at the end of the day, the product comes back and it looks no different to the product that I did. So I haven't had anything but great feedback, frankly, about outsourcing. And that's realistically because the products that we offer are better than I can do myself anyway.
Yeah, I guess what happened with me in that scenario is quite interesting, is that it was a competitor who prided himself on doing his own editing, and he did a lovely job. But come spring, he couldn't keep up with it. He couldn't do all of that editing, and he struggled with the turnaround, and then he'd be on a shoot and couldn't make a change. And that, I think, that was more of a problem for the agents, and that was a problem that was a real problem for them rather than kind of an abstract problem. And that is how I ended up getting that work.
Yeah, and look, that's the thing. So that's just education with your clients that you need to do as a business owner. So if you've got a competitor who is actively undermining you, saying you're not as good because you don't do your retouching, well, then your way around that is to say, well, yes, but I can deliver my product to you at this consistent standard every single day of the year, no matter how many shoots you throw at me, right? And I can go and break my leg next week and not be able to turn up to the job, and I can bring one of my team in and they can do it and deliver the product. So there is a difference. Sure, that person does that and they've got absolute oversight of every single thing step along the way, but I've got oversight of the product before it gets to you. So I'm not going to send you anything that's not good enough. So you've still got my oversight, but now you've all of a sudden got insurance in your business. You're not going to upset one of your clients. You're not going to lose a listing because, something that happens that's outside of my control. It's just not going to happen. So to me, if you ever have that, there's so many logical ways to counter an angry creative who insists that their way is better. And do you know what? It isn't about better or worse. It's about having a business or having a job. And I'm in here because I wanted to have a business. Our members want to have a business. They want it to be sustainable for them and their families. And part of that is offloading things like these low payoff activities that we call low payoff activities, and creating, a situation where if you don't turn up to work tomorrow as a business owner, the business keeps going and the clients don't know, right? Go to a cafe, you meet the cafe owner, it's brand new and they're always there, front of house, and it's great. You build a relationship with them and you like going there. Then all of a sudden they've got staff because they're growing and you get to know the staff. And then some days that person's not there and it doesn't change. Like the food's the same, the atmosphere is the same, you still have a great time. You're not just leaving because that person's been successful at building a business. So I sort of don't buy that argument with competitors. If they want to undermine or try to undermine, they end up undermining themselves, because realistically, I don't go to battle saying, hey, we're better than old mate. Yeah, I just say, I'll just deliver this to you every day of the week with, mate, one hand tied behind my back, easy.
So would you recommend to someone who's saying, I want to start a business, but they're coming out kind of, it's a blank canvas, they're starting fresh, so they've probably got limited money, they're not doing a whole lot of work yet. Would you tell them to be outsourcing straight away, or would you? Absolutely. Even though they've got time?
Without question.
Why?
Yeah, without question. Because you've got time. You've got a limited amount of time. So if you want to run a business, let's just, talking, in reality, small business owners work a lot more than 40 hours a week, right? Sure. But let's just talk generally. You've got 40 hours a week, right? In that 40 hours, there's one way you've got to generate income, and that's going out and doing jobs, right? If you want to come home and then do your retouching or your video editing because you've got time, that's time you're not spending going and trying to find a client. It's time you're not spending flying your drone around doing a suburb profile so that your video editors can produce it so you can then show it to clients, right? It's just missed opportunity spending time doing that because, in inverted commas, you've got the time. You just won't build a business anywhere near as quickly as somebody who outsources. So you sort of got to get your head out of the, hey, it costs me money and I've got time. Well, your time's worth money. You want to run $1 million business, your time's worth $500 an hour. right? So it won't cost you $500 to get your images produced, but you can make $500 if you go out and win a client and shoot a video for them and photos, etc. And you might spend $30 getting your images produced. So I would say to anybody who is actually serious about a business, not a job, forget it. Get those things done, get them streamlined, and move on with your life and just focus on what's important. That's getting clients.
What would you say to people who, I think this is probably more of an American thing, but what would you say to people who say, this is an art form and you can't, cookie cutter real estate, my images are special and my agents use me because my images have that special look?
Well, first of all, I'd just say that's marketing. I would say that's not actually reality, because it's really important that the creative does a great creative job, right? Regardless of who's doing the retouching, right? So you can do beautiful images, and you should do beautiful images, beautifully composed, well thought out, attention to detail. You should be doing that as a photographer, right? So whether you're retouching them yourself or not. Now, just because you're not retouching them, who says the process isn't identical? It's just you not doing it, right? So like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's just marketing. It's like, hey, I care, I drag the slider exactly to this point, because my gut tells me, well, great. So somebody else can drag the slider to that point because their gut tells them too. Mm. It's just, it's just, to me, it's just marketing nonsense.
Yeah.
And it can be overcome any which way you want. I understand that. That's a creative who wants a creative job. But there's a difference. If you want a creative business, like, is that person doesn't want to probably run a business. They probably haven't realized that they're never going to get a holiday. They're never going to get a break, right? They can't. How can they? They do everything themselves. Imagine if the cafe owner was cooking all the food, serving everything, taking everybody's money and doing the dishes. I mean, come on, it doesn't work. It's not a business. That's just breakfast at my house.
Well, you're not doing the dishes. We know that. If everyone listens to episode 4, they know who's doing the dishes.
Well, the dishwasher's doing the dishes these days.
I guess the other thing is also you've got to think about what your clients are seeing, and it goes into what you said about running a business. Your clients aren't watching you drag that slider. They're not watching that artistry. So it's a bit of a vanity exercise as well. You're not doing it for anyone else's benefit. If you're having the same standard of product, if you're having that high quality, what the clients are going to see is you on site taking a plant from one room and putting it in the other and swapping around the cushions and, moving the furniture and doing those things and building the relationships and patting the dogs and all the other stuff that goes into it. I think that is where the creativity and the flair comes in.
Creative happens at the camera. Yeah, it doesn't happen in the studio. Like that's nonsense. So you can find equally people who will say, hey, I shoot film because I don't retouch at all. And great. They don't have any work. So like you can make any argument you want. It's nonsense. The creativity is and is the copyright is what is coming off that lens or burning into that sensor. That's the reality.
Mm.
That's where you do your creative work. Right, and you can systemize the rest of it. If you've got a look that only you can produce, that can be replicated, right?
Mm.
You can. I just don't have that conversation with people. It just doesn't happen.
It's also funny because you can go very extreme in the opposite direction as well. It reminds me of training I once did with a very well-known high-profile real estate photographer, and his entire session that he did with us was about how you don't need to do any editing if you do the right kind of lighting and setup on site. And what he was telling us to do was basically get a lot of extra lighting, different sheets to hang from windows, all sorts of stuff, and take an entire day to shoot 5 photos of one house. And I remember sitting there just being like, how on earth are we supposed to do this as a business? Like, yes, I'm not going to be editing tonight, but instead of doing 6 jobs or 5 jobs today or even 4 jobs, I'm going to have 1 job a day. And this is for real estate. It's a commodity. It's great if you're shooting it for, a magazine, but you're shooting it for a house that's going to be sold in 4 weeks. So these images get used for such a small window of time. It just, it didn't make any sense. So anyways, I just found it really interesting that you can go so far in the opposite direction as well. And that really it all just comes down to running a business.
Well, it's interesting that person flies around the world training rather than actually shooting real estate for money. So that'd be the first point I'd make. Yeah, that's a way to shoot for sure, but it's not commercially viable.
Not in our industry. Like you might do magazine shoots like that where you do one a day or something like that and you charge thousands and thousands of dollars. And if that's what you want to do, but I don't want to do that.
But that's a creative agency. And at the end of the day, the photographer's not making the money there. The ad agency is. And there'll be 15 people on the job, right? It's such a different thing. By all means, go take beautiful photos and do it however you want to do. But if you want to run a business in a real estate industry, there's things that need to happen. And one of them is outsourcing and get it done from day one, right? Don't start with a crappy, even if you're great at it, but reality is it's quite hard to do. So don't start with an average looking product and then, you'll only be able to charge an average amount of price and say, oh yeah, but when I get busy, I'll be able to afford the outsourcing and then my product get better and be able to charge more. Well, it's not going to happen. You're just going to go out of business before you get there. So, you might hear that I'm kind of passionate about this. I've done it a few times and I just don't see a commercial path for a business owner.
I think the other thing to consider is that, as creative as you want to be creative on site. If you're spending all your energy being creative, in inverted commas, by doing your editing and drawing your floor plans and doing your edits of videos, it gets progressively harder to be creative on site when you've been going to bed at 4:00 in the morning.
Mm.
Yeah, and I've heard photographers, like they have said this to me that I've met and haven't ultimately joined, hey, I want everything but the video editing because, I've got time. And I'm like, cool, when have you got time? Well, I'll do it at night. It's like, cool, so what does your wife think about that? Oh, well, I just do it while we're on the couch watching Netflix. I'm like, that's got a good life ahead of it, doesn't it? Like, I mean, what happens when you've got kids and like this is your only time to talk to your wife and you're doing video editing on the couch? Like you'd be divorced for 3 years.
I remember enjoying it, and I remember having this conversation with Dave, and that's, I think, the other thing is we've all been that person late at night editing our videos ourselves, playing with them. And it can be fun. You can get some kind of personal creative satisfaction out of it. But it really, like I said, it's about you. That's not about your business. It's not about your clients. It's really about you. As soon as you outsource, you go, oh, I don't want to outsource it. I like doing it. I tell you what, I like not doing it more than I like doing it. Like once you do it, you don't look back. It's really, really nice.
100%.
Learning a new instrumental language or whatever else you could do with all that time you get back.
A really interesting point to make is actually about what Dave's done. So Dave sold his BWRM business on the Mornington Peninsula, right? He sold a business, right? A business that had a value attributed to it by a business valuer. And I can tell you now, Dave would not have been able to sell that business because it wouldn't have been a business that was able to be sold if he did his image production, floor plan production, and video editing. First of all, he would have turned over a quarter of what he turned over. Second of all, how do you train that? You've then got to find a buyer who wants to pay you money so they can produce all of these products. But instead, you just had a hot swap. One of your contractors who already knew what to do on site, already knew the clients, basically paid you to take over that role, and the product stayed the same. The service stays the same. The clients haven't moved anywhere. They're really happy.
The client's probably happier.
Well, of course. I mean, you've met Dave. Yeah. So to me, it just fundamentally comes down to the difference between a business and a job being logical and illogical. So if you say you want a business, but you still convincing yourself that you need to be doing these things, and you're just not being logical, in my view. And in reality, the businesses, we have another pillar on our platform, which is the pathway, and which we'll talk about, but we take photographers from turning over zero to a number that we'll discuss at another time in 12 months, and they can only do that because they use the products. It's just not an option any other way.
Well, Guy, I think that is a very in-depth look at our first pillar product of what we're offering, why it's better, but also why it's so important for people to do this and to take that step in outsourcing if they really do want to grow a sustainable business, which is what we're all about. So thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to talking about the next pillar with you in part 2 of the series.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Guy.